There's a rumor floating around that Florida State is looking to leave the ACC and could potentially be eyeballing a move to the SEC or the Big Ten. Now, if this happens, this would be devastating to the ACC. Because first of all, if Florida State leaves, why wouldn't Clemson leave? And I believe the reason for Florida State wanting to leave the ACC is because of money. They look at UCF and they're like, there's no freaking way that UCF is getting more money a year than what we're getting from our media rights deal. There's no way, ACC. You got to make it right. We're Florida freaking State. They are UCF. We're the Seminoles. We're one of the most iconic teams in the history of college football. We're kind of synonymous with college football history. So for a school like UCF to be getting more a year than us, you got to fix it. And they got a point with that. They do. You can't fault them for that. If you are somebody who is against expansion and you always get mad when a team thinks about leaving the conference, you got to understand that money means a lot in college football. With money, you can expand your facilities, put more into the football program and help out the school, etc., etc. And when you got schools like UCF getting more than you and you're a bigger brand, a bigger name, your name holds more weight in the college football landscape, of course you're going to want to get those kinds of dollars. Of course, there's going to be a sense of entitlement there, and it should. And the reports are also saying that if Florida State leaves, Clemson is right behind them. And Clemson, same way. Now, although Clemson, I don't think they're the kind of blue blood that Florida State is. I don't even think you can consider Clemson a blue blood. I would consider Clemson to be a new blood. But Florida State leaves, you know Clemson is right behind them. Because, yeah, they don't have the history that Florida State has, but they do have a lot of history stemming from this past decade with 2 national championships. They're a school that a lot of people like to watch. They have a really big fan base. They draw a lot of ratings when they play. So if FSU leaves the ACC, who's going to take them, the Big Ten or the SEC? Now, if we're doing this based off location and geography, Florida State and Clemson should be in the SEC. Now, the SEC probably might push against accepting Clemson because, you know, they already got South Carolina. And South Carolina kind of already has been doing a little bit of player hating and whispering from the sidelines. They wouldn't really be a big fan of Clemson joining the SEC. Now, I don't get why they would be upset against that, because that would just be more money for them. All right, but okay, they don't want them in the SEC. Cool. Texas A&M is in the SEC now, and so is Texas eventually. So Florida State, they join the SEC. We get to see them in Florida. And then imagine if we can bring Miami along. The SEC could potentially have all 3 Florida schools. Do you not know how big that would be for them? In the Southeastern Conference and all the conference realignment chaos going on, we could actually have one conference in it all that actually somewhat kind of sticks to geography, at least a little bit. Now, going to the Big Ten, I don't know how that will work out for Florida State. I think they would be a much better fit in the SEC. Don't y'all think? Because FSU in the Big Ten, I don't really see how it works. Honestly, like, the Big Ten is kind of like middle of the country. You know, maybe West Coast now with UCLA and USC, but with them adding FSU, I just think it's a weird fit. I just think it doesn't fit right. And Florida State going against Ohio State, Michigan, I just don't think it hits the same. I would much rather see Florida and FSU every year versus seeing Florida State and Michigan, or Florida State and Penn State, or FSU and Iowa. You feel me? Like, I feel like those middle of the portion country teams should be going to the Big Ten. The teams that are located on the southern part of the border or the southern part of the United States should be playing in the SEC or the Big 12. That's just my opinion. You guys can debate about that all you want to, but that's just my opinion. That's how I feel it should go. And the SEC already has Florida. You have FSU. Why wouldn't they want to bring Miami along? It's more money. You could have 3 of the biggest schools in Florida. I don't get why the SEC wouldn't take FSU. Like I said, them in the Big Ten, I just think it's a little weird. Honestly, I don't really think there's any Big Ten games I'll watch and be like, oh, like FSU and Michigan, like hell yeah, I gotta watch it. Like, I mean, they would be two of the best schools in the Big Ten, but they wouldn't really gauge my interest. I like Ohio State and Michigan, not just because of the rivalry and the history that it has, but because of the playing styles of the two schools. They're just completely polar opposites. You look at Michigan and Penn State, that's a good rivalry, you know? But you look at FSU, Michigan, I just don't know, man. It's just a personal thing to me. I would much rather see FSU versus Bama, or FSU versus Tennessee, or Clemson versus Tennessee. You feel me? Like, these matchups just hit a little bit better, don't you think? So FSU, if they are planning on exiting the ACC to get more money, I think that the SEC will be a way better option for them. And if they can't get into the SEC, what's wrong with taking Clemson along with you to maybe the Big 12? Or maybe you can end up forming your own conference. I read something before this called the Significant Seven. They pretty much go form their own conference. Now, I don't know how the hell that would work. What would be the process for that? But that would be interesting. But in all, FSU reportedly is looking to leave the ACC, the Atlantic Coastal Conference. There are teams that are making way more than Florida State that shouldn't be. They got a right to leave this conference. And if they have to pick between the SEC and the Big Ten, I think that the SEC would be the best landing spot for them.